The broadcast
All
is
right.
live.
We are live. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of National Pastime. Got John Toaster and J-Rob here, and we are going live for the first time on YouTube. So if we fuck up, all zero of you that are watching the beginning of this broadcast, you will you'll know the caveat ahead of time. But
Did you get that bleep in there,
regardless,
intern J-Rob? Or was it too fast? Is there a 5-second delay?
yeah, 7-second tape delay. Yeah. Anyway,
Forgot how
we are
long
here.
that, replay took for the fucking 49ers game. But anyways, carry on.
Yes. Anyway, we are here to recap Super Wildcard Weekend, all 6 games. I'm just going to get this out of the way now. I went 5-1 in my picks. Both you losers went 2-4. So if you're looking for betting advice, just come my direction. Don't even worry.
We made it to the next round. I think that's what's important. Playoffs.
Yeah.
Playoffs are all about surviving.
Survive in advance, baby. But anyway, there were 6 games, really only 2 that were competitive, although there were, I think, some very interesting storylines in each game. We'll get to all of those. But we're going to start with the Cardinals at the Rams and that debacle from the Cardinals standpoint anyway. The Rams just smashed them 34-11. This game was not close at any point. The Rams just cruised really throughout, and we'll get to the Rams, I think, in a minute here and maybe what it means for them as they move forward in the playoffs, especially next round going to Tampa. But what the hell was that from the Cardinals? And I know they've been free falling, as the season ended. They just lost to the Seahawks in week 18, but we talked about, okay, what can't they do, right? Kyler can't try to do too much. Well, the pick 6 was, if you looked in the dictionary, doing too much, that's what you would see. Like, just absolutely.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall, well, you got to do something, and then that was the something.
Right, exactly. And it's like, looking at Kyler in this game, like, he probably played the best game of his career in their first matchup with the Rams when they beat them earlier in the year. And this may very well have been the worst game I've ever seen him play. I mean, he saved, I think, some of his stats a little bit. Well, maybe not, but saved him a little bit in garbage time, really, of this game. But that was absolutely one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. And he's lucky as hell.
It was the worst game? Because I've got a quote here from Cliff Kingsbury pregame. And he said, I think this is what he's been waiting for 3 years. He's a guy who wants to be playing for something and knows he's playing for something. This is the first shot at the playoffs, and I expect him to probably play the best game of his career.
Well, I think we all know that Cliff probably isn't the one we need to be going to for any sort of evaluation on talent
late
here.
Season advice, yeah.
Yeah, but Kyler is so fucking lucky that he plays in Arizona, because Cliff will bear the brunt of this collapse, and he may very well lose his job for it. We'll see about that. But if this was a big market team, he would be getting roasted all offseason about not being able to show up in the big moment. You waited 3 years for this, you talk all this shit and whatever, and you go and lay that egg. I mean, he would be getting killed. Imagine if he was in the New York market. Like, we'd be talking about it. It would be on every channel.
100%, other than they still might have Daniel Jones as their quarterback next season. So there's a level of your ability to move on from somebody. But if you needed a summary in this game, at the end of the first half, OBJ had more passing yards than Kyler Murray. So there you go. Who's your quarterback? Who's your future? It doesn't look good for the Cardinals.
Yeah, so you're saying the Cardinals should probably go after OBJ this offseason, right?
I would. I mean, he's never done anything but, help teams to make the playoffs, right? He's now made it with the Giants, he's made it with the Browns, and made it with the Rams.
There you go. So my question really is, and I'll kick it to you guys maybe to get your thoughts on whether we think Cliff is going to be back or not and what that means for them. But where do the Cardinals really go from here? Because they seem to have really tapped out, I think, their ceiling with this roster is currently constructed. They really needed a leap from Kyler to even be in the conversation. They got it, for the majority of the year. I know they were missing D-Hop in this game, but you look at this roster, it's very thin. And next year they have 4 key players whose cap hits go up significantly. So Hopkins goes from 12.5 to 25.1. JJ Watt goes from 4.9 to 15.9. Buda Baker goes from 7.8 to 14.8, and Rodney Hudson from 2.9 to 12.6. I mean, they're going to be sitting there. They have about $5 million in effective cap space going into the offseason, which puts them about 19th in the league. And while it's not the worst situation, they have 39 players under contract. Most of the teams that are below them are in the 40s or are already paying a quarterback big money. The Cardinals are going to have to make that decision on Kyler too in the next couple of years. So they're in a tough spot.
It's not a good situation. I think that as long as D-Hop wants to be there, that's their biggest saving grace as far as some cap relief. But the roster construct is not good, knowing that they're going to need to start paying Kyler a year after next. And it's not a big market. And to me, the best thing for them as far as constructing a roster next year is getting a coach that people can believe in and want to stick around, because right now that's not Cliff Kingsbury. He hasn't won more than 2 games of his last 7 since, what did I text you, 2015 with Patrick Mahomes. Like, they don't close out games. He's not a effective coach. Once people figure out his system, they need to move on. There's been no development of Kyler Murray. You can't make that pick 6 in the end zone. And the worst part about it to me was he had almost 3.5-4 seconds.
A lot of time.
You've got to have some pocket presence to know that, okay, I've just got to get rid of this. I can't sit around forever, because guess what? I can't run 15 fucking yards backwards like I normally do because I'm in the end zone already. So his number one go-to was taken out of his bag and took 6 points, all the momentum. Not that there was momentum for the Cardinals, but any chance of building some momentum for the Cardinals away. And they were down 28-0. To me, this wasn't the largest deficit that any one team faced this weekend, but 28-0 is way worse than the beatdown of 30-0 that the Bucks had against the Eagles, right? Like, this was supposed to be a competitive game. These were 2 teams that matched up well, split the season series, and there was just a no-show from the Cardinals.
Yeah. I mean, so do we think Cliff is done? Is he out?
I don't think he's out. I think he should be out. I don't think that anyone has a ball sack big enough in Arizona to ultimately make that move. And I don't know why, because there's been nothing in his resume that makes him deserving of another chance, right? I think if your goal is to win a Super Bowl, you see what you have in Cliff and you know that he's not excelling you to that next level.
Mm-hmm.
And while you have this roster, this construct, you are probably the second most desirable position outside of Dallas right now.
If they opened up.
Exactly. So you can get anyone and everybody that you want right now. If you want a Byron Leftwich, there's no way that he's not coming back to Arizona to be the head coach right now. So you take advantage of that window and you say, okay, you got a young quarterback. He's on a cost-controlled contract for next year, still very reasonable the year after that with a 5th-year option. And we can build something around this, right? You've got one of the best wide receivers to ever play the game, if not the best, quite frankly. D-Hop is another animal. Let's go, right? Like, this is our window. We won 11 games with this fuckhead as head coach. What can we do with somebody that actually is able to manage a game, pump people up? And the biggest thing for me is I hadn't noticed it until J-Rob said something around Kyler Murray's body language, but sitting on the bench down 28-0 in a playoff game, you can't do that as a leader. I'm sorry. Like, I don't care if you're getting your shit rocked in a regular season game, I'll let it pass, right? Because that's just one, right? Like, I mean, it won't be 162 games. You're like, okay, yep, let's let this one go. But on a one and done, you got to be there fighting till the very end, regardless of any other circumstances. And they're just sitting on the bench, acting dejected, like they have no chance. Like, where's the belief going to come from? And to me, that ultimately boils down to coaching.
Yeah, it does. Somebody needs to, I mean, frankly, a fucking vet on that team needs to grab him. Like, where's Rodney Hudson? You know, really, like, I don't know, you go up and down that roster, maybe a Zach Ertz or a JJ Watt, right? Like, where are those guys telling him, like, you need to set the example? The juxtaposition of having Russ on the Manning cast saying he needs to be going up and down the sideline, letting everybody know that they still have a chance and they got to keep pushing, to the shot of Kyler sitting there on the bench, like head down by himself, not talking to anybody, was as pretty damning.
I mean,
You know,
the juxtaposition to me of just JJ Watt being there. Like, I ripped everything apart in my upper body and I'm coming out for this game. There is no reason for me to be here other than a chance to win this game and play one more game next week, one more game the week after that. Like, it's one game at a time. And you're going to sit here on the bench and just pout that you've been defeated. Like, I would lose my shit, quite frankly.
Yeah, it was a tough look for Kyler. I hope he learns from it. He's still really young, obviously. And I love Kyler. Like, he's dynamic. He's very fun to watch. But we saw a little bit of his limitations in this game. It wasn't just, you know, that mistake, that glaring mistake in the end zone. He missed a ton of easy throws and like stuff that, and he makes some incredibly difficult throws every single week. But it's like, if you can't hit those layups from the pocket when they're given to you, you know, you're going to have issues. And he wasn't able to really break out. Like, the Rams did a great job containing him. You know, I thought he, especially after some early issues with that offense, you might see him just say, like, fuck it, I'm going to run around and try to, you know, win this with my legs. We didn't really get to see that from him because the Rams did such a good job. So, yeah, all around, very, very tough game for the Cardinals. They're going to have to really think about things this offseason. And I agree with you, though. If they cut bait with Cliff tomorrow, that probably becomes the number one job that's available based on the current openings. And maybe, you know, even if the Cowboys opened up, I'd still probably take the Cowboys job. But still, you know, it's there. It's right up there. Yep. So interesting. I mean, I was not expecting that. I don't think any of us were expecting that level of beatdown.
Yeah, I don't think we were expecting it to be quite so abysmal, but Cliff just never got Kyler in a rhythm. And Sean McVay did the exact opposite with Jared Goff almost, with Matthew Stafford, right? Like, he's just like, okay, let's get you flowing. Let's get you in this right state of mind. Let's have some success early on. And you use that momentum, that confidence that you build up with them, and it was just never there. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4 straight 3-and-outs, and then an interception on the third play of the drive. So there's just no rhythm, nothing for them to get going behind and have some, you know, feel like they were in this game at any point in time.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at the Cardinals too. The Rams, frankly, like, Cooper Kupp had what, 3 catches in this game? Like, Stafford.
There wasn't any offense. Stafford had barely 200 yards. Both rushers under 100 yards. Like,
they ran they didn't need to do much, but they did run the ball very effectively. They may not have had like the total yardage, but I mean, the first play of the game, Sony Michel goes for like 40 yards. And I think this is another thing. You start looking at the Cardinals and you start placing some blame on Cliff. Obviously, Kyler deserves some blame for the play on the field in this one, but it goes up to Steve Keim. I mean, you look at their drafts recently, they should be thanking the fucking stars that they got the number 1 pick and landed Kyler, because every other one of those picks recently looks real bad. I mean, their last 2 drafts, they took 2 off-ball linebackers, and you would think, okay, if that's what you're doing, if nothing else, you should be a team that stops the run. Those 2 guys can't even see the field for them, especially on early downs, because they don't know where to go. And like, I'm not saying that's entirely on Keim, but you look at these draft picks and this team as a whole, and maybe it's time they fucking clean house. I mean, you keep Kyler, obviously, but, you know, get rid of the GM too. It's just very, very weird situation there. But I think we do need to give, finally at some point here, transition the conversation to the Rams. So Stafford, played well, didn't have to do too much, gets his first career playoff win. So good for him, gets that monkey off his back. And I think the Rams, based on what we saw from Cam Akers in this game, look like they could be scary. Cam was running you wouldn't have guessed that he freaking had any injury within the last year, much less an Achilles rupture 6 months ago.
I almost tweeted out a joke, but I felt like it might be taking a bad taste. I was like, what was it? The whole season, was it just a stub toe? Because how he was running was nothing representative of a major reconstructive surgery like he needed for his Achilles. And that was absolutely impressive and terrifying for everybody that else remaining in the league, right? We'll get to our picks and preview for Rams Bucks next week or in our next episode, but that he ran real freaking hard, and unfortunately Buda Baker found that out as well. I'm glad to hear that Buda's up, recovered, heading back to Arizona.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Akers, that adds a dimension to that offense that is going to be really tough for teams. Sony Michel is obviously a good between the tackles runner, but we saw it on that first play of the game. If that was Cam Akers that hit that hole, he's probably gone, right? And Michel gets caught because I think I said in our text chat that he runs like both his legs are 300 pounds. It looks like painful. He actually reminds me a lot of Jordan Howard when I watch him run. But Cam Akers adds a dimension to that team that, I think, again, I'll hold, I guess, my pick until next episode, but they're going to give the Bucks some trouble.
Yeah. As long as Donald's on the field. I don't know how many more people he can strangle without getting a suspension. I don't think that it's actually going to happen in the playoffs, but damn, dude, that looks like some anger management problems going on right there if you keep grabbing people by the neck.
Dude, the funniest part is the back of his helmet says "Stop Hate" while you see him just trying to strangle this dude.
He's trying to strangle the hate out of other people.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of the defense, dude, props for going after Von Miller. He's already proven, that was worth a move. He helped really fortify that front line to just allow guys to drop back, go into more coverage, and he helped give problems in with Donald. And Ram stars showed up, and I think this also proved that the Cardinals probably don't have as many stars as we thought they did. I think outside of DeAndre Hopkins, who are you really going to label a star on that team? And star power is lacking. And like you guys are saying with the draft picks, they're not developing anybody and they have no cap to go get anybody. I think they have to get rid of Cliff. I know I'm going back to the Cardinals, but if they don't get rid of Cliff, they're literally burying Kyler's career as a Cardinal into the dirt, because you're not going to be able to evaluate him if he's going to be worth getting an extra contract. And are you going to pay him without knowing what he's going to be like? So
they're going to
be shocked if they don't. I'd be shocked if they don't get rid of him.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, they're going to have to pay Kyler. But I agree. If you run it back with Cliff, with the lack of moves that they're really able to make here, I don't really know if you're changing much next year, right? You'll have Hopkins back for sure, but does DeAndre Hopkins make this game any closer than 34-11? I don't think so. Not based on what we saw, especially going against Jalen Ramsey. I know he does well against him, but you would imagine that they would have done their best to take him out of the game. So it's tough, man. And we'll get to the 49ers here in a minute, but they're in that division where the 49ers, look like they're going to be, if not solid, if nothing else, right, for the foreseeable future. And the Seahawks, we don't really know what they're going to do yet, but if they keep Russ, it's, reasonable to say that they're going to be in the conversation as well. That you're going into, it was all the things we talked about before the year about how tough that division was and the issues that could present all of the teams, but the Cardinals especially, and they got came out of the gates hot. Kyler looked like an MVP candidate, and they were able to I guess surprise some people. But now that it's all caught up to them, and kind of retroactively or whatever, looking back at the season, it's they overachieved a little bit. And where do we go from here? So
remember when Kyler was an MVP candidate and all the Arizona fans were clamoring that they weren't getting their due respect at 7-0?
Yeah.
Like this is why it's
This is
laughable
why.
to me. But the bigger point is that this was their window. This was them with an electric quarterback on a rookie contract. This is the time that you need to make a move, and you're wasting your years with Cliff Kingsbury. You've got one more year left, maybe two, depending on how you want to say that, that's still a budget contract in his 5th-year option to actually make moves. And Cliff is holding you back. There's no doubt in my mind that you are not going to reach your full potential with him at coach right now. So why hang on to him? Where's the loyalty? What's the reason? I get loyalty for a team like, we'll say, the New York Giants. Like, okay, you fired 3 head coaches after 2 years. Like, why would I want to go there? Like, where's my opportunity for growth? On this, you're like, okay, I've got a star-studded roster. We made the playoffs. I can take this team to the next level. I want that job. And so you get rid of the dude that's holding you back right now and have one of the most appealing openings in the NFL. I just don't understand how he's still there today.
Yep.
If I'm the Cardinals, I'm going after Brian Flores. He's a guy that could instantly give you an identity, a guy that probably could handle getting punched in the face a bunch in that division. Like, I know he's getting chopped by everybody, but he would be the first on my list if I was the Cardinals.
I think still go Byron over.
I think
Flores.
Yeah. I think Leftwich would probably be my lean as well. But I think Flores, from a culture standpoint, I agree with you for sure.
Yeah, without the history of Byron, that would change things. But the fact that Byron was there already under Arians. All right, we're going to another head coach that should be fired.
Are we going to talk about the Patriots already? Or no? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Yeah, I think we should go Niners Cowboys here. So the 49ers go to Dallas. We got to talk about Jerry World here a little bit and the stadium construction, but they win 23-17 despite Jimmy G really trying to lose the game. I guess my overall question to you that I really want to get your guys' take on here. The last play call for Dallas. Bad call or bad execution? Or both?
To me, it's 100% a bad play call because you put the game in the ref's hands. Like, that is what if you went every boilerplate speech from a coach that lost a tough game or had a bad call against them, they're just like, we can't put it in the ref's hands. We can't let them, be the deciding factor. In that play call, the only things that you could control was when Dak went down. And outside of that, I mean, that ref tripped, got sidetracked, was drunk on the job. I don't fucking know. Like, you can't take that risk because you have no opportunity to stop the clock. So to me, it's a bad play call. I think that the analytics show that the difference between a Hail Mary from 40 plus yards and 25 plus yards are not all that spectacularly different. So would you rather have 2 shots at 10% conversion or 1 shot at 10% conversion and the opportunity or the chance that you may not even get that one playoff? So to me, bad play call.
Yeah, I think I agree mostly. The execution was definitely off, though. Like, I've been, hearing a lot of people talk about it, and really with that strategy, you need to have something around 17, 18 seconds left on the clock. They had 14, but I also think Dak maybe extended that run a little too far. And that needs to be something that's communicated as you're making that call or putting that call in. For him to get down,
to step up and actually coach.
Yeah, well, yes. So Mike McCarthy.
One thing worth noting, I talked to my brother about this because he played center in college, asking him about that play, what he thought of it. And he said he didn't hate the play as long as they practiced it, but he knows they didn't practice it because the center wasn't demanding the ball. He's like, the ref always has to set the ball, and the center knows that. And the fact that that wasn't communicated or executed upon means that it was kind of like a fly on the seat of your pants. He felt like it was a fly on the seat of your pants call. And so that's why he didn't like it. But if they set that, if the center's ready and gives him the ball, I think they can get that play off. But So yeah, I guess it's a bad play call because it wasn't prepared, which I guess would make it bad execution as well.
So that was, I don't know if the
details weren't discussed, which I wouldn't be surprised that McCarthy's a macro kind of guy.
Exactly. Yeah. So when it came down to time management, but that's the point to me as far as it being a bad play call is what does it gain you versus what is the risk? And there was a lot of risk that you were putting in the ref's hands by executing. I mean, what was it ultimately, like a 12, 14-yard run? Like that's a lot for the umpire to catch up with. And maybe, who knows, Mike McCarthy's still living in fucking 2008 when the umpire used to be on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage, right? Where you're basically running right at the umpire versus him trailing the game or trailing the play by 15 yards. It was bad luck. Bad luck for Kellen Moore. I think that's going to hurt him quite a bit in these coaching evaluations moving forward. And again, I ditto to everything I said about Kingsbury for Mike McCarthy. For me, I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to go. You're sitting on one of the most talented rosters in all of football. And, you know, a quarterback that, while Dak didn't have his best game, I don't think Dak was the reason that they lost this game. And McCarthy is at every turn, it feels like, making the wrong decision, whether that is a fourth down call to go for it, or his time management, his use of timeouts, all of that stuff. It's just awful. And you can't waste a good roster with a terrible coach. And it'd be one thing if this was Kellen Moore, okay? And he's your head coach, and he's young, and he's learning on the job as he goes with a lot of this stuff. This is a fucking retread that is boring, that the only reason he has a job is because Aaron Rodgers won him a Super Bowl. And he brings nothing to the table. Like, we've shit on him all year, and rightfully so. They won't move on, but they absolutely needed to.
I want them to lose both Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn. That's why I think that there hasn't been an official announcement yet, is that neither of them have been offered a job. I think as soon as one of them is offered a job, they have to pivot real quick and say, okay, just come to us with whatever offer you have. This is a typical negotiation. Just bring it back. You're the dude, right? Dan Quinn is probably where I'd lean over Kellen Moore at this point, but they would try to keep Kellen Moore as well. And just say, guess what? The world is your oyster. If you get a head coach opportunity, we're going to give you our head coach opportunity, because we can't fire McCarthy without, assurance that you're going to be here. And it all the negotiations happen, within an hour, basically.
Sure.
They just, gosh, I don't know. I'm not even a Cowboys fan. I'm an anti-Cowboys fan. I like when the Cowboys are good because it's better for the NFL. But holy shit, like, even I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Kyle Shanahan left. I texted you. I was like, is the bigger story going to be another late Kyle Shanahan collapse or Mike McCarthy clock management? Like, there was no lose scenario in this game. It played out perfectly for both of those storylines.
I guess so. Although I will say, the late collapse had nothing to do with Kyle Shanahan, and it was Jimmy G trying his damnedest to give this away. Now, he'll likely get out of this game without catching too much heat, because they ultimately did win. But we really need to focus on some of his awful moments, like him missing Ayuk on that double move. That was, he shook Trayvon Diggs. and he missed him completely, not even fucking close. And then, frankly, he's lucky that he sucks so bad, because if he completes that ball to George Kittle and doesn't bounce it, and Kittle still fumbles, I mean, that's probably the game, right? The Cowboys probably score there and win. So, I mean, kudos to Kyle Shanahan and what he's able to do with Jimmy G as his quarterback, and somehow convincing several Jimmy G stands that this dude is actually good and not the problem, because I don't get it. And I know some of the advanced metrics occasionally support Jimmy G. Like his EPA per play is pretty good. But he just doesn't offer you anything. I mean, if Trey Lance was ready to go, I would hope Kyle Shanahan would, put him in next week if possible. I don't think that's the case. He's not going to do that to a rookie in Lambeau, but like Jimmy is going to get absolutely worked.
Remember what Kaepernick did in Lambeau?
That's true.
Keep that in your back. Keep that in your back pocket. No, I agree. Jimmy G didn't do anything to help them once the game should have been in hand. And one more thing that I want to just shit on Mike McCarthy for real quick is that every book that I've seen, they should have gone for 2 points after that touchdown that they scored. They should have tried to make it either a 7-point game or 5-point game. And they went with 6. And the most nervous part for me was after that Kittle not fumble was like, holy shit, he's going to be right because now they're going to go win the game. But to me, in the analytics, every right call was keep yourself in the game as long as possible. If you go for 2 there and you make it, you can allow a 49ers field goal and you're still only in a 1-possession game. So there's just nothing that he's offering is something that I want to be a part of right now. And Jerry's in his own little world where you can't fucking see out of the, whenever you're facing west, and your punts can't actually travel the full distance that they need to because you basically put a fucking blockade in there. I didn't know we were playing Mario Kart in an NFL stadium.
I mean, that what was that stadium? 1.1 bill or something?
Yeah.
And to have 2 design flaws that showed up in the same game, just absolutely atrocious.
But the thing is, like, if you do a design flaw, you do it so that you have a home field advantage, right? Like a design flaw that you can coach around, game up. That okay, we're gonna take the ball in the first half so that we don't have to deal with sun, whatever.
Right.
It's just fucking a shitty, really expensive stadium with basically escorts that are in their lingerie on the sidelines. Like that's the appeal of Jerry World right now.
Yeah. Hey, there's worse places to be.
She's a nice lady. Sorry, that wasn't directed at you.
My last thought on this game here is Dak was named the MVP, and I just love the I love the idea of the losing quarterback of this game getting the MVP every year.
Did he get slimed or did he back out of that too?
I'm sure he backed out of it, but I think I saw a graphic of Mitch handing the MVP to Dak. It was glorious. So that tickled me.
I loved how much pregame chatter there was where all the Cowboys came out that said, yeah, we'd totally get slimed if we win. And I'm like, well, let's focus on the win part versus what you're going to do with the slime afterwards.
Right.
And glad it played out like it did. The 49ers they're going to be a tough out, but holy shit, how did they not recognize a fake punt was an opportunity on that drive to keep the Cowboys alive? Like, DB just turned, booked it, and the guy was open by 15 yards. Like, okay, yeah. Brian Anger, 16 yards, 1 for 1, best passer rating of the game.
Yeah, good for him. Maybe he could be the 49. Well, no, they got Trey Lance, but there's a couple QB jobs that are open from these games that, or at least should be open. We'll see.
And all right, just real quick, this camera only covers like up to, like your jersey number. So if you want to talk about Deebo Samuel at all, we won't see your erection.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Deebo, man, holy fucking shit. Like, I don't understand how we just forgot about him because he was hurt last year. Like, because 2 years ago, his rookie year was very similar to this. And I mean, Shanahan now knows exactly how to deploy him. He's a fucking monster. And we were texting about it a little bit, but Deebo is probably going to get paid the way Le'Veon Bell thought that he should have been paid as a running back and receiver a handful of years ago. So Deebo, fucking, if the 49ers have any chance against the Packers, Debo's going to have to pop off. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. But I mean, you put Debo, Elijah Mitchell, and the Trey Lance Wildcat in there that you've been hiding all season. That seems like it might be the kryptonite for the Packers. I don't know. What do you think, intern J-Rub?
In regards to that matchup, or just how I feel about that game?
In regard to that three-headed monster that Kyle Shanahan's created.
Trey Lance, Debo, Elijah Mitchell.
I mean, I still have no faith in Trey Lance. So, I mean, if the main part of that Wildcat is the one you don't want having the ball every snap, I'm not that worried about it. I know I'm always going to be a Niners hater. Like, it's going to happen. But they're fucking scary, man. They are scary. I grossly underestimated them all year. The second I called them a fraud, they went on an 8-2 run. But man, Jimmy's definitely not the answer. But like, I don't know what you do, because I don't think Trey is going to be ready even next year, let alone next week. And
I agree on that.
Like, what do you do? Do you just tread water with Jimmy and hope that you continue to draft well and make good contracts, or do you just take the growing pains with Trey next year? Like, I don't know.
It's almost like the NFL sets us up to have off-season podcasts somehow, right?
True. The drama continues to unfold.
Drama continues.
We'll have to see what Bosa and Warner, their availability is left next week, because those would be big hits. But congrats to the 49ers for getting the job done. And
the only underdog that won.
Parlay, yeah.
Yeah, ruined my fucking parlay, sons of bitches.
Also, the only road team to win this week.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think we should probably transition to the only other game that was really competitive, the Raiders at the Bengals. So the Raiders end up falling in this one. The Bengals win 26-19, but I don't have too many thoughts about this game as a whole. It was nothing really spectacular from the Bengals or Joe Burrow. I thought he showed off some of his like elite skill in this, but he didn't have to do a ton. I think the real story of this game is how terrible the officiating was, though, right?
Ugh, yeah.
Jerome is not reffing another game this postseason. That was
his crew.
That crew is, yeah. And I've said it a couple times that now that sports betting is getting more and more mainstream, that it's going to be tougher and tougher to allow games like that to go. And that was rough. I'm sorry. Like, I don't think that ultimately the officiating impacted the outcome. Like, if you talk about the whistle or the inadvertent whistle on that touchdown pass that Joe Burrow threw, like that was happening regardless. Nobody stopped on the play. But by the letter of the law, that's an inadvertent whistle. Should have been replayed. It's to me very typical of the NFL, where they pick and choose how they want to enforce the rules, because that was one where it clearly, by the letter of the law, should have been replayed. And I think everybody in New York actually knows that, but that's not the official statement from the NFL. Yeah,
and that's one where I'm glad they didn't, stick to the letter of the law, because the call ultimately, or like, what happened on the field played out, like you said, the way it should have. The whistle the official blowing the whistle, prior to that is another piece of that whole debacle. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's trying to protect Joe Burrow potentially. It's probably where it's coming from. But that was just atrocious all around. The Raiders, applaud them for persevering this season and making the playoffs. But they didn't really deserve to be there, I don't think. So,
but they made it to the end of the game. Like, they were a couple plays away. To me, this again comes back down to coaching, and why this should be, as much as I appreciate what whatever Biscotti, whatever United Airlines gives out, Delta Airlines gives out on their trips. Appreciate the job he's done, but why they would spike the ball on 1st and goal with 30 seconds left? How much time do you think you need? Unless you're running the ball on one of those plays, you don't need 30 seconds to get off 4 plays. So you might as well, at the very least, just have something that says, I'm going to throw a jump ball I'm going to throw it, 8 feet high out of the back of the end zone. maybe Darren Waller is tall enough, athletic enough to get it. If not, that was my spike, and we take 6 extra seconds off. But at least we made an attempt at trying to, score.
Yeah.
And I was most curious because I think they probably would have gone for 2, quite frankly, if they had scored at the end there and just tried to close it out.
That would have been interesting. I would have definitely loved to see that from a team that just squeaks into the playoffs on the road. That would have been cool.
Coach that's already on a hit list, basically, right? He knows he's got nothing unless he wins the Super Bowl.
Yep, for sure. No, all in all, the Bengals took care of business. They, have the pleasure now of playing the Titans, who are rested with Tractor Cito coming back. So we'll see what it looks like for them next week. But, Joe Burrow, with the way he's playing right now and the way Jamar Chase is playing, I don't think you can necessarily count them out. But they weren't necessarily all that spectacular in this one.
No. And I love how the NFL gets to I think they would have preferred the Bills-Chiefs matchup to be a round later, but they get to just bury the Titans and the Bengals in the Saturday afternoon game.
On Saturday. Yeah. For sure. I mean, I would have liked to have seen this Chiefs-Bills matchup go 1 week later as well, but, we'll take it. Any last thoughts on this game before we move on? I don't think we need to linger too long. Okay. Then the final 3 games here really were not competitive at all, but I think we should go to the Patriots at the Bills. The Bills win 47-17. Dildos were thrown, tables were smashed. Toaster, how are you feeling after this one?
I got to catch up on 2 episodes of BattleBots that I was behind on, so that was nice. No, to me, this is very different to me than the Cardinals loss. Like, you were hopeful as a Patriots fan that you could stay competitive with the Bills, but you weren't delusional that you were a Super Bowl contender at this point. And when I say Super Bowl contender, I'm not saying that the cards couldn't fall right and you ultimately make it there. It's that you just know that you don't have the same power on offense that these other teams do. You aren't the Chiefs, you aren't the Bills. You are hoping that your coaching could overcome things, whereas the Cardinals have the talent to say we should have been there. 17 points from the Patriots. I was obviously taking the Patriots with points in this, and 17-24 points I honestly thought was going to get it done. I did not expect a perfect game from a Buffalo Bills defense against Bill Belichick defense of all things.
Buffalo Bills offense
against a Bill Belichick defense of all things, right? Like 7 straight possessions, 7 straight touchdowns. They just had zero answer. And part of me wonders where Brian Daboll was with this running game the entire season, because it's unstoppable once they start getting some balance going.
Yeah, he's definitely figured it out, and I think that is going to serve him very well in some of these head coaching interviews. I mean, Josh Allen, he's a fucking alien. When he broke, I don't know which DB's ankles it was, but when he broke that guy's ankles, I just you just need to pick yourself up and go home, man. It's fucking 0 degrees. You just got hung out to dry by Josh Allen. But I mean, Josh Allen was insane in this one. He finishes 21 of 25 for 308 yards. It's 12.3 yards per attempt. He had 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 3 big time throws. His average depth of target was 10 yards. I mean, he was insane. And frankly, it's like you see the juxtaposition in real time there of why you draft for traits in certain positions, right? And with him and Mac Jones, kind of lined up across from each other in this one. And I made a note that we should have known it was over when they showed that clip midway through the first quarter of McDaniels trying to talk to Mac Jones, and he was like more concerned with what his breath looked like. I'm like, okay, we're gonna have some problems here. I think it was, I think it was like 7-0 at that point. But this was surprising to me. Like I'm with you. I thought if the Patriots got to 17 to 20 points, this would have been a close game, and this was just complete domination by the Bills offense. And I mean, they look scary. They look scary.
They look very, very scary. To me, there's been a lot of chatter. Like, people are talking about trading Mac Jones at this point. I'm like, there's nothing on that game was Mac Jones's fault. That first interception was a tremendous play by Hyde. And
oh my God,
it wasn't a perfect throw by any means. He could have been 2-3 yards further outside, but holy hell, for him to come back and cover that entire half of the field and basically steal a Nelson Aguilar touchdown.
From him. Yeah.
And then the second interception was, again, a tremendous drop back by the linebacker, tipped it up in the air. There's no fault of Mac Jones. I'd say Mac Jones is probably one of the better players. Trent Brown was one that kind of phoned it in at the end, and they just couldn't get anything going in their running game. And that was what the strategy was. And if you can't get going in the running game when that's your primary strength, then you're going to get beat. And J-Rob, I know that you had asked what the outcome of this means for Steve Belichick. And to me, there is no official defensive coordinator. There is no official play calling duties. Like, everything under Bill Belichick is hush hush. So I think that this is means for a relegation potentially for Steve, and maybe push him back to a linebackers coach or something like that, and keep a little bit more mystery around who's actually calling the plays, because they couldn't stop them at all. There are 4 incompletions on the game. Nobody, I guess Zach Moss had 1 carry for 0 yards, but other than that, they were averaging over 5 yards per carry, whoever they gave the ball to. So it was a poor defensive performance, and that was unexpected, but like you said, terrifying where the Bills are going.
Yep.
As a Patriots fan, are you concerned that Mac Jones's arm strength is problematic in cold weather situations, aka like the Bills are going to be good for a long time? Like, they're going to have to go through the Bills. It's going to be cold as fuck in January. Are you concerned that his arm strength could be a problem late in the season when it's cold as shit out and you need to push the ball?
He's already shown me more than like a Baker Mayfield, than half the league out there, quite frankly, that I would take the drawbacks from Mac Jones over the positives of most of the league. I'm not saying that he's going to be a barn burner, that he's going to be able to take the Patriots consistently to the Super Bowl like Tom Brady was, but I think that they can scheme around him and be successful. And hopefully, for me, Josh McDaniels is gone.
I don't know if you're going to get your wish. I don't think anybody's banging down the Patriots' door to make him their head coach right now after that performance. But all right, I think we should keep moving on here. Again, these other 2 games weren't all that exciting either. But the Eagles at the Bucks, the Bucks win 31-15. You want a fucking insane Brady stat? Tom Brady is 17-3 in his last 20 playoff games. That is fucking absurd. And you look at it too, like this game. Would it surprise you to hear that Brady had the lowest average depth of target of any quarterback this week? Like 4.9. It was just like a classic Brady game. Get the ball out. It wears you out.
Throwing for like 136 yards or something like that. Wow.
Yeah. But like, it's just classic Brady, right? Got the ball out. He wears you down. He punishes mistakes. And the Eagles ultimately couldn't keep up, especially with the game that Jalen Hurts had. Hurts was 23 of 46 for, 23 of 43 for 258 yards. He had 2 interceptions. He had 5 turnover-worthy plays per Pro Football Focus. Not necessarily the playoff debut that the Eagles wanted. And I think maybe we'll make them think twice a little bit about what they end up doing at that position moving forward. I saw people on Twitter calling for Gardner Minshew just because he at least gives you a chance more consistently, to throw the ball in that offense. And this was tough, man. Tough.
That's a tough one. That is a tough one for the offseason, because before this game, you were feeling that Jalen Hurts was your guy. He's done enough. He's shown enough. And then for him to drop this performance in the postseason makes you reevaluate everything. Unfortunately for them, their draft picks aren't as high as they were probably hoping. I think they ultimately ended up at 15, 16, 19, whereas they were at top 10 for all three of those earlier in the year.
That might end up working out in their favor, though, because there's nobody really. Yeah, exactly. So it's like you don't have to take a chance and really move up or try to, take a swing on a guy. You can use one of those three picks, pick from the bunch of this group of like Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, and, see what happens, really.
Yeah. The bigger takeaway for me, just because we're talking about going forward, is the health of the Buccaneers. They had two linemen that were banged up, both of them left for a period of time. How Jensen came back in the game, I have no idea, because it looked like he was out for good. And basically the next drive, he was back in there and just said, guess what? I'm a big ass mofo and I'm going to be a mofo in this game. So, if they had lost their center, I would have said the Bucs' chances were completely sunk. But that there's a lot of injuries that they're dealing with right now, and that was again a costly win for them.
Yeah, but it was still a pretty convincing one, and I'm not ready to count them out, frankly. I mean, with Tom Brady, with the star power that they do still have on defense, with Vita Vea, Ndamukong Suh, Shaq Barrett, Devin White. I mean, their DBs, Antoine Winfield Jr. and I forget the guy's name, Whitehead. Like they come up and tackle, and they still have enough on defense there that I think you can, if you put together a good game plan with Brady on the other side of the ball, you're gonna have a chance. But it's tough. I mean, if this team was fully healthy, we're probably talking about them. Having a cakewalk to the Super Bowl.
Completely different. And one more insane Brady stat. He's now caught a pass in 2 straight games. They were both on the sideline, but I appreciate that, he got a little bit of redemption against Philly, catching an out of bounds pass towards the end of the game. So
there you go, Tom.
Brady's been working on it, that TB12 method.
Yep. All right. And that brings us to our last game of the weekend, at least the last one we're going to talk about here. The Steelers at the Chiefs. Chiefs won 42-21. This one, I mean, the Steelers took a 7-0 lead on that TJ Watt touchdown, and it's telling that my first response wasn't, oh shit, this is going to be a game. It was, oh fuck, they may have just poked the bear, and it just went all downhill from there. Yeah. I mean, this had no business. We talked about it a little bit on the preview. No business being the Sunday night game. And, Ben Roethlisberger had a very Ben Roethlisberger-esque game, or at least what we've seen from him as of late. He was 29 of 44 for 215 yards. He did throw 2 touchdowns, but he had 4 turnover-worthy plays. And the Steelers had no business being on the
liability. Like, he looked better than I had seen out of him for the past.
I'll give you that.
5 games. He was still making throws, and I mean, if you were to tell me that the Chiefs went on their first 5 possessions, 3 punts, a fumble for a touchdown, and an interception, you're like, okay, wow, there's a chance here. And then Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense went and rattled off 5 straight touchdowns in the span of 12 game minutes. So you were exactly right on the poke the bear. I will say that this was my parlay pick more around the conspiracy theory rather than the actual feel of things.
Chiefs didn't even give you a chance, though.
they did for the first 5 possessions. And I mean, I guess the best thing to come out of this game was the Barstool TJ Watt versus Derek Watt conundrum, right?
Right. Yeah. If anybody listening hasn't seen that, Hank from Pardon My Take thought that he bet on TJ Watt to score the first touchdown at like plus 12,500, and he celebrated only to realize it was Derek Watt, the fullback for the Chiefs, and 1-0. That was pretty good. The Chiefs, I don't think we need to say too much about them. Their offense has seemed to have found itself again a little bit towards the end of the season. They're going to have a tough matchup with the Bills, but that's going to be a really good game, I think. The Steelers, on the other hand, though, they're obviously moving on from Ben Roethlisberger here. They have the 9th best cap situation going into the offseason as far as effective cap space. I think this team could be right back in it if they make the right move at quarterback. Yep. And I don't know what that move is. We'll have to see how kind of the pieces fall as we get going into the offseason here with some of these guys like Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers. But I mean, this team, I thought they would be terrible. They drug the. No, I'm not. In fact, they saved $3 million just by cutting his ass. They probably should go ahead and do that. Yeah, he's not the guy. But I'm shocked. They drug Ben through this year. Mike Tomlin had another masterful performance, and avoiding another losing season. And I think they could be right back in this thing with the right guy.
No, I agree too. One more development for me for the Chiefs, since we care about the people that are still remaining. Jerick McKinnon is a fit in that offense and is going to be lethal moving forward if they just, kind of let their egos get out of the way, because he's doing what we thought CEH would be doing. But he's on a whole nother level right now. 12 carries, 61 yards, but six receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown out of the backfield. He's just too damn fast. That's too many people to cover. If you've got to cover Tyreek Hill, who's a speedster, Jerick McKinnon, who's a speedster, and then Travis Kelce, who's just a gigantic ass body who also now throws touchdown passes. Where are you gonna go? You're fucked.
Yeah, seriously. And they have even their secondary guys, right? Like Mecole Hardman is a fucking speedster. So he takes the top off the defense. You get routes going underneath with Kelce and Hill on like a crossing route. I mean, if you have to account for one more guy like McKinnon, it's a losing game.
Base out there. Yeah. So I think the Chiefs might have found a little bit of a formula here. I'm not giving Patrick Mahomes like a complete redemption based on some of his struggles from this year, but 400 passing yards, 5 TDs against that defense that was stifling. I mean, it's stifling for 5 possessions. Like, I don't know where we had time to do this. Was this a double overtime game that I was unaware of, that they had extra time to throw for these yards and these touchdowns?
Because I have no idea.
Basically turned it on, like I said, 5 touchdowns in 12 minutes of game time. That's terrifying.
You know what they remind me of, honestly, is like the Warriors from their little run, where you blink and all of a sudden you went from like being up 10 points to down 15, right? And it just feels like they can hit you so fast, and you're just always like worried about that potential. They've found their stride a little bit on offense. We'll see how they do against the Bills. I mean, the Bills defense is no joke. I know they've had some up and down games, but as a whole, that unit is very strong. And the game's going to be in Kansas City, right? So I think that helps them. It's not fucking colder than a witch's titty in Buffalo, and maybe they'll they'll be able to.
You heard it here. We're going to reverse our typical podcast in our preview. Chiefs Bills first. You down?
I'm down. We'll get to that first.
Sunday Night Football, reverse order. Let's do this.
Yep. All right. Any last thoughts on this game before we wrap up for the week, really?
I'm just really, really proud that 2 teams this week had a thick 6. I love seeing the big boys score some touchdowns. So 2 thick 6s in a weekend is always a good sign for the NFL. So I was happy to see that.
Oh, yeah. A big guy score. I think in the late, great John Madden, had an awesome quote in the movie The Replacements, where he said he loves when a big guy scores because you get a big guy touchdown and a big guy dance. So J-Rob, I know how much you appreciate the thick 6. So yes, I agree. We can't let that go unnoticed. All right, guys. Well, that will do it for our Super Wild Card Weekend recap. We will get you the divisional round preview in a couple days, but I think all in all, we're getting to the point in the playoffs now where all of the games are going to be pretty competitive. This first round was a little touch and go there, but yeah, I'm excited. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we will catch you later.
Is it time to expand the playoffs to 16 teams per conference?
Oh, yeah, God, please no. Bold prediction: Dan Quinn's going to be the Broncos head coach by the end of the week.
Oh, you know what I was.
Go ahead.
No, go for
it. He and Kellen Moore were scheduled to be interviewed, and all other interviews for the rest of the week were marked as tentative. So I think they want one of those guys, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's Dan Quinn. So yeah, that's where my money's at.
When we were talking earlier about the Cardinals possibly moving on from Cliff, my thought was that Dan Quinn would also be a very good fit for that team as well. So, all right, yeah, we will monitor the head coaching carousel as well. I think we're probably going to start getting some movement this week, hopefully.
You've got to move on from McCarthy if you're losing Quinn, right?
Oh yeah,
sacrifice McCarthy to save Quinn. Did anybody read Shakespeare or anything? What the fuck?
Yeah, was Mike McCarthy in Shakespeare? I think he has the body. Yeah,
no. It was McAllister or something. I don't know.
Okay, all right, that will do it for us, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you later.